Hello, welcome to the Where's My Sports At podcast. Today we're joined by a very special guest, someone there that has firstly inspired me to be a better parent, and he's a very shy, humble gentleman. Introducing Wayne Goldsmith. He's been in sport for over 30 years, working with some of the best coaches, athletes and teams and sporting systems around the world. One of the things there that I want to introduce to you today is Wayne has so many great coaching philosophies, sporting philosophies, parenting philosophies. If you haven't listened to him before, please make sure you have a listen to him now, because honestly, you'll be inspired, you'll be motivated. Welcome along. Wayne, great to have you on, mate. It's an absolute honour and a privilege to be talking with you today.
No, that was a good time for a cough, wasn't it? Right at the start, set the scene. But yeah, like all Australians, quiet, humble, reserved, but above all modest.
So, mate, and I have so many questions for you, and I've enjoyed watching your videos over the years and seeing and learning about the better parenting philosophies out there and how to be a better sports parent. But I'll go through a few questions there that I do have for you around sport in general, because today we'll touch on some things and then we'll build and get Wayne back at a later date to go into more subjects. And if you have some questions for Wayne, make sure there that you get in touch with him through his website. We'll mention that later on. And as well, read his book, follow his podcast, follow his YouTube channel. There's so much information out there, and any part of sport, get on there, get involved. So, Wayne, first and foremost, mate, can you go through just some unique challenges that you've had over the years with developing sporting models and looking at introducing better programs around the world and changing mindsets?
Yeah, thank you. It's like any industry, people tend to stick with what they know and what they see. And the prevailing mindset for most people in any industry is that's the way we do it here. And I get pushback, as anyone does who's a change driver and what we would call a thought leader, that when you think, this could be better, we could change that could be better, we could make an impact here and make it easier or make it more profitable. Most people can only see what it is they're currently doing. And I mean, a sport like swimming, for example, that when I talk to coaches, that most coaches want to talk about laps. They want to talk about what they can see, what they can measure, and what they can count. But if you've been around coaching for a while, you know that the things that actually matter are the things you can't see. Things like values, things like commitment, dedication, confidence, a work ethic, respect. All those things are the real drivers of performance. The problem is you start talking about that stuff to coaches or coach educators or people who run sports systems, they can't see those things. So they think they're not real because they can't get their head around the fact that something that they can't immediately see, count, measure, pick up is that important. So quite often when I go in and I talk to people and say, guys, what you're focused on is not the thing that's actually going to make a difference. They push back because they can't see it. And quite often when I'm doing work with organizations, I start with what I call the vision exercise. And it starts with me saying, why do you call a vision a vision? Well, the answer is pretty simple. You call a vision because you can see it. And the art of a leader or the art of a coach, the art of anyone looking to change is to be able to see the future with the same detail and clarity and to tell the story of what's going to happen in the future from their vision with the same detail and clarity they can tell stories from the past or the present. And again, the problem is a lot of people call themselves leaders, but they're not visionary. They can't see where things are going to go. And if you can't see clearly where you're going, you can't then share that vision and inspire others to follow you. So to be fair to say, the most common challenge I get is I can see quite often, I can see where things are going because I read a lot. I listen to everything. I follow a lot of different political perspectives. I've read Machiavelli and Voltaire and studied a whole bunch of things. And there's patterns in the way people do things and have been always right in front of us. But we're so focused on systems, models, structures that we don't see quite often the obvious human things, which are the driving factors behind it. And yeah, that's the most common one. And the frustration you have sometimes, because there's real world consequences. You go in and you can say, God, if you think to yourself, if I can't get this client or this coach to change, the real world cost will be their numbers will decline, kids will drop out, and the sport will fail. And it's really frustrating when you can't get them to see the same vision or get them to share in the vision. That's something I've been working on for a long, long time.
So with finding a great coach, Wayne, like who in your mind do you model around? Do you model on like a specific type of coach, or do you model on a specific type of person when you're going through and coaching? Because there's so many different versions of what good coaches are out there. What's your makeup there? So you're looking for a coach to coach any team. Do you have a specific way of going about it?
Yeah, really, it's a very simple model. It's don't coach like anyone else. It's don't if you're reading a book by a great coach and going, I'm going to coach like them, you're immediately heading down the wrong path. They're great texts to read. How did Phil Jackson coach? He coached the Phil Jackson way. You know, the essence of greatness is uniqueness. You look at anyone who's been exceptional. Why have they been exceptional? You can write a list of 10 qualities of great people: hard work, dedication, visionary, passion, all those things apply in every walk of life. But ultimately, you become great by doing things your own way. The essence of greatness, the reason why we follow people is because they're different and they're unique, and there's something about them, a quality or a vision or an invention or an innovation. There's something that they've done which is changing the world that we relate to. And the first step I always have with coaches is help them to be the best version of themselves. That's the only way you can be, is authenticity, integrity, and just express yourself. And look, I've had the great fortune of seeing some of the best coaches in this part of the world, in the US and even in England around Premier League. And again, there's things you could say, yes, there's some things that they do which we can learn from. They're always on time. They dress like professionals. They've got a great handle over time management. They've got great relationships with the players. They're qualities that you can learn. There's no doubt about that. But ultimately, if greatness is your focus, you got to be yourself. You're going to get – there's a great line by Wayne Bennett, the rugby league coach in Australia. He says, what you take into coaching is what you'll take out of it. And it's a wonderful line. And if you read his book, which is Don't Die with the Music in You, you know, Bennett says that when you become a coach, you'll learn about strength training and nutrition and drills and all those things. But the thing that's driving your success as a coach is who you are as a human being. And if you go in with a sense of integrity, purpose, decency, respect, a work ethic, an empathy and a love for what you do, that's what's going to make you a great coach. Not getting a sports science degree, that just gives you more tools to apply who you are into the equation. So no, I don't have a model for coaching other than to help coaches figure out why they coach. There's my favorite story that I tell about this is actually a New Zealand story, that I was invited to work with some emerging coaches. So coaches that are just below Super Rugby level. And one of the games that I play with coaches early on is to discover why you coach. And I was talking to a Maori coach, and a lovely guy, and him and I were talking, and I said, why do you coach? And if you're really into this why stuff, read Simon Sinek's The Power of Why. But I've been doing it for a long time. He probably pinched it off me and owes me $1 million in back fees. But so because once you ask why, why leads to understanding motivation. If you're understanding what's motivating you, then your purpose becomes very clear. And so I said to this young rugby coach, he said, why do you coach? He said, because I love the game. I said, mate, that's not an answer. That everybody loves the game. What is it about the game that you love? So again, I'm asking why questions. Why do you love the game so much? Well, you know, you got friends and you learn about hard work and you learn about teamwork. I said, mate, rowing tells me the same story. Swimming tells me the same story. Soccer says there's nothing like soccer people, Wayne. You don't know what it's like to be part of an equestrian group. They all tell me the same stuff. And so we kept digging in. Why are you coaching? Eventually, the guy says to me, he said, if you must know, he said, I was in a family of 7 kids, and my dad used to beat the hell out of all of us and my mum. And thank God he left when I was about 10, because I probably would have killed him. And I grew up without a dad, and my beautiful mother just led the family. But I started to go off the rails, and when I was 13, I was already getting in trouble with the police. And he's incredible story, He said, my friend of mine was really concerned, and he said, why don't you come down and play rugby? So he said, I turned up, and I was just sitting on the sideline in a pair of jandals, as you call them. And the coach comes over and he says, oh, you're a big sort of a lad. He said, you might go all right at rugby. And he got me to do some exercises. I got involved and I liked it. And I gave up smokes at 13 and all those things. And he started to cry a little bit. And he said, Wayne, so if you want to know why I coach, it's because that man saved my life. And I see it as an obligation for me now to be that man for the other young men in my community. And it was this beautiful moment that said, that's what it's really all about. Because once he understood why he was doing it, once he understood his motivation for coaching was this deep personal drive to help other human beings break free of difficulty and crime and hardship, that it clarified his purpose and the way that he coached. So again, back to your answer, I don't really have a model other than help coaches to figure out why they coach and then to give them some of the tools they need to coach that way.
That's awesome, man. It's a great answer. And one saying that I always like to use is passion always shines through. And I think that's one of the things there that you've put in that story, is that having that passion and bringing it through comes through and makes you a better coach. Applying to what's been changing over the years in the sporting makeup, how do you find the different philosophies have changed in particular? Like, we've gone from a very we've gone from having basically they show up, they train, they do all the work, to doing weights was the answer, to now more about the holistic view of the athlete is now the answer. Do you find there that over the years it's progressively becoming better and better, or do you find some old school training methods and tactics are still applicable today?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I probably spend most of my waking life thinking about this, which is why I have to drink heavily just to get to sleep. But yeah, look, the way that we're wired as human beings is to see the things we can see. So generally, coaches are very attracted to what they can see, what they can measure, what they can count. There's a great line by Einstein, attributed to Einstein, which says, not all that counts can be counted, and not all that's counted counts. And a brilliant line. And where a lot of coaches, particularly when they start off, they end up that the only solution they know, because it's all they can see when you start out coaching, is the things they can count. So they naturally enough go with, how many drills will we do today? How many laps can we run? How many laps will we swim? How many hours will we be on court? Everything's about the measurables and the countables. Unfortunately, most coaches don't move out of that zone. They stay in that area. Some coaches, when they're around for a little bit longer, they go, well, maybe today's about physical and physiology, but maybe it's about technique and skill. So they start to expand their knowledge and understanding of what coaching is, and they have a range of ways of looking at how to help athletes get better. When you've been in it for a while, you get to a point where you go, those things are important. Science is always part of what we do, but it's a very small part. You go, well, it's important that we count the laps. But as I say, and quite often say to swimming coaches, it's not about counting the laps. It's about making the laps count. It's not about what you do. It's how you do it. It's not about the kids just going 1, 2, 3, 4. It's about the kids being engaged with the experience of what they're doing and thinking about how they can do it more effectively, and asking questions like, what if I did it that way? Would I'd get better or worse? What if it's about kids taking ownership and responsibility for the laps. I say to coaches, the biggest difference in coaching now is we don't coach athletes. We coach with athletes. That one word in the middle, just put with in there, changes the way you see the whole thing. Don't think I'm coaching these athletes as in I am coaching them to do what I want them to do. You're coaching with them. You're building an environment that provides them the opportunity to start to achieve the things that are important to them, the things that they choose to do. So coaches generally stay in that first zone. And when you start to introduce different ideas, some of them get it, some of them don't. And it'd be fair to say that the default model of most of the Olympic sports, rugby I know is an Olympic sport, but I'm talking about the traditional, what we call grunt sports, road cycling, diving, gymnastics, swimming, of course, any of those really huge time commitment sports where it's a large physical component, massive physical component. Most coaches around the world are still stuck on, if we do more, we'll get better. And then we look at the reality, the rate of dropout in sport, 14 to 16 years of age around the world in most sports is very high. And it was a serious problem before COVID, and then COVID's just made it worse for a whole bunch of other reasons, maybe for another call. And what we know is kids don't leave a sport like diving or swimming, or they don't leave it hating the sport. They hate the way the sport was delivered to them. They hate the experience that they were receiving. And that's because basically we're still driving most sports by just doing hard training. And there's no shortcuts. You've got to train hard to get to the top. But if you talk to people, if you talk to kids who drop out of sport and you look at some of the issues around mental health and well-being, they're looking for something different. They're looking for coaches who care about them. That wonderful line that goes, kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. They're looking for better relationships with coaches. They're looking for coaches who are understanding and flexible with their changing needs. I mean, a 10-year-old kid still thinks being a superhero is a career choice. So you're dealing with them at 10. If you're still coaching them the same way at 14, 15, 16, and they walk away, it's nothing with them. Kids are not soft. The internet hasn't destroyed their brains. Their parents aren't lazy. All the stuff that I hear every day, it's rubbish. If you're still coaching a 16-year-old the way you're coaching a 10-year-old, they're going to walk away. Why? Because at 16, the fumes get them, car fumes and perfumes. They want to grow up. And if you haven't adapted the way that you work with them and communicate with them and inspire them, and if your relationship doesn't evolve, they're going to walk away from that relationship. Now, way too many coaches say, oh, he just was never meant to be a rugby player. He gave up at 15, and that's your fault. That's your problem. And you got to learn very, very quickly that it's more than just doing the weights. It's more than watching your diet. It's more than the countable the measurable things. I often say to coaches, it's the things you can't see that make the biggest difference. It's the spaces between the lines of the programs you write. It's what's not there that will make the difference in your coaching. But yeah, look, it frustrates me that I walk in, I just see coaches thinking that all they've got to do is work harder more often than anyone else and the kids will get success. And it's really not about those things.
Yeah, mate, that's one of the things there that I really wanted to ask you today is about the youth sport. And as I've alluded to, just hearing your methodology on it has changed my perception on how I work with my son. With one of the great lines that you use in one of your videos is, they're not going to be the next Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan or anything like that at 7, 8, 9 years of age. And seeing that, do you find a lot of parents still come to you and say, I've got the next Michael Jordan here, when really it's got to be self-driven by the athlete, right? That's the but they've got to be the ones coming to you and saying, I want to play this. I want to get to the training. I want to wake up in the morning. What's your...
It is one of my favorite topics is sport and parenting, and I've been pushing and driving it since the early 1990s. That's how long I've been doing this, and all over the world. And my approach has changed a little bit over the years. But there's 2 or 3 Kiwi stories that I love to tell. I was down in Southland, in Invercargill, and a parent came up to me and said, "Wayne, we just want to have a chat with you. That our daughter's a great netballer." And I said, "Is she a great netballer?" They said, "How old is she?" She said, "Well, she's 10. And what we're going to do is we've decided to give her a chance to make the Mighty Ferns. So we're going to move to Auckland so that she's got a chance to play in a high-level competition." And I said, "Have you got any other kids?" She said, "Yeah, we've got a couple." I said, "What do they do?" "Oh, he likes his bikes and she does this." And said, "Your husband, you got jobs?" Yeah, we got jobs. "But we're going to move there because she's a great netballer," right? 10-year-old kid. And I said, "Look, I want to ask you a few questions, just bounce them off you. What does she do on her days off? Does she go and get a netball and go down the park and practice it?" "Oh, not really." "So how many times a week does she train?" "Oh, 2 times, really, twice a week. And then she plays on Saturday." I said, "She's ever go to the coach and say, 'Hey, coach, I love this game. There's some other things I can do at home to practice?'" "No, not really." "Does she ever ask to maybe play in another team as well so she gets more games in?" "No." "Does she ever ring her friends up and say, 'Hey, let's just go and throw a ball around down the court and practice shooting?' "No, she doesn't do that." I said, "For God's sake, don't go to Auckland." The girl is not saying to you, "Mum, in my heart, there is nothing I want more than being a Silver Fern." It's just that at this moment of time at 10, she's bigger or stronger or trained more than the other 10-year-olds. I can't tell you whether she's going to be any good. And I've been in this for half a lifetime. And it was fascinating. But Mum wasn't doing anything wrong. Mum wanted the best for her child. So many parents who exhibit behaviors that we raise our eyebrows on, they're doing it from a really noble motive, which is they love their kids more than they love their next breath. They just love them with every fiber of their being. So naturally enough, as we would with our own kids, once you see that they've got an interest or a passion in one area, you go, what can I do to help them realize their potential? The real question is not how do I help them realize their potential? It's how do I create the environment where they continue to love what they do? Because if you love what you do what you love. That's the cornerstone of everything. I mean, I work with an NRL team fairly regularly here, and we talk about love, trust, friendship, and selflessness as much as we talk about the traditional high performance words like commitment, excellence, unconditional and relentless pursuit of being the best. We use those words, love, respect, selflessness, as much as we use those traditional words, because it's that important. If they don't love playing the game, no matter how much money you throw at them, they're not going to play the game. With the emphasis being on the words play the game. They play the game with their mates. Every great footballer I've ever spoken to, within the first 2 or 3 minutes of discussion about why do you play the game or why did you end up in Everton or whatever it might be, the words that they use, because, man, I just love having a football in my hand. I just love playing with my mates. I love this game. None of them say, "Oh, because I'm famous and I date supermodels and I've got a Ferrari." It's all they do what they do at every level because they love the game. So the advice to parents is allow them the opportunity to fall in love with the game. Forget the expensive shoes and the sports drinks and the paying for high performance camps and all that stuff at young ages. Just let them fall in love with it, and the rest will happen if it's meant to happen. The other story is from Canterbury, where I was doing a presentation there, and a woman said at the end of a session I did on sport and parenting, said, "Wayne, look, I really love your session tonight, but my daughter's a little bit different." So automatically my brain's going, okay, here we go. And she said, "My daughter's a perfectionist, and she's just not happy unless it's absolutely perfect. And she pushes herself and gives everything she's got to make sure it's absolutely perfect. How do I deal with that? And I said, how old's your daughter? She said 6. And I mean, I was stunned that, again, the bleeding obvious was right in front. I said, look, I'm gonna give you something, the greatest gift I can give you, which is saving your relationship with your daughter. And it's this: a 6-year-old can't tell you what a perfectionist is. They still think that what they see on kids' television is real, right? They're still collecting dolls and little cars and talking to them and hearing the voices come back. 6-year-olds are not perfectionists. The reason why she's, in your eyes, a perfectionist is that what she craves more than anything in her life is your love, your acceptance, and your attention. And somehow, probably accidentally, you've given her the impression that unless it's perfect, it's not good enough. So the kid who wants your love and wants your attention and wants you more than you can possibly imagine thinks, well, when I do good, mummy's really proud of me. She posts on Facebook. She tells all her friends how great my backflip was last night. The better I do that, the more she'll love me. So the perfectionism has come from you. And so mum had a bit of a tear, and I stayed back and we had a chat and tried to give her some guidance. And again, I say to parents, look, 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds are not champion anything. So they're just beautiful kids who at that moment in their life play that sport. That's it. They're not, never introduce your child as, this is my child, the backstroker. This is my son, the goal kicker. This is my daughter, the cyclist. Never associate what they do with who they are. And if you're going to go on Facebook or any of the social media and go, hey, check it out, little Johnny's just won an award. He's 8 and he's just kicked the winning goal in the local soccer competition. Isn't he amazing? And you show a picture of that. When the kid misses the goal, you got to do the same thing. Because again, the kids go, when I'm successful in sport, when I do good, mum and dad are really proud of me. Tell all the friends, share with everybody their great love and admiration. Well, I better keep winning because I don't want to lose that love. Your relationship with them is way, way more important than whether or not they kicked the goal or scored a glorious cover drive. It's everything. So I say to parents, I get it. I got 4 kids. I got married again December 15th last year, and my wife's got 4 kids. So I've now got 8 kids. And I really get it. I completely understand where you're coming from. But create the environment where they fall in love with the sport. Have them go to bed at night lying there and going, I'm loved, I'm valued, and I'm accepted for who I am as a human being, regardless of whether I win or lose. If they win, hug them, kiss them, tell them they're amazing and buy them an ice cream. If they lose, hug them, kiss them, tell them they're amazing, buy them an ice cream. Regardless of whether they win or lose, succeed or fail, as a parent, doesn't make any difference. If you get that and the kids are in love with the sport and they get to 14, 15, 16 and they go, I love this sport, it's wonderful, then let's talk about playing for the All Blacks. Up till that time, just love them for who they are as human beings. And that wonderful safety and that wonderful knowledge of saying, I am loved for who I am, is the most powerful gift you can give them. If I can convince one parent of that, then I've had a good day. But they don't hear that message very often. They usually hear a message of it's about the type of boots they wear or sports drinks or buying better equipment. They don't hear the message that what kids need more than anything is just good parenting.
Yeah, that's just brilliant advice, Wayne. And it's one of those things there is that a child won't thank you on your deathbed for the time you've spent away. They'll thank you for the time and the quality time that you've had with them. And I think you've summed that all up there, which is, I hope someone does hear it today. Not only from what I heard years ago when I was listening to Radio Sport, and all of a sudden I was like, lights went on, and I was like, this guy gets it. So thank you very much, Wayne, for your time today, because I know there that you're an extremely busy man and you've got more podcasts and more recordings to get to after today. But for all our listeners out there, please make sure to jump onto Wayne's website, which is wgcoaching.com. Wayne's got a whole lot of, he's got a great book called Leading Without Leading. That's available on his website, Sporting Parents and Parenting Potential. That's one there that I've personally bought myself, and I've thoroughly enjoyed going through and applying the learnings over the years. Wayne also does coaching on demand as well, if you're a budding coach and want to get into it, and as well a complete coaching package as well, where Wayne can go through and discuss that as well. Wayne, so with your full coaching package that you do, how do you tie that? How does that work?
Yeah, look, it's what I found that people want more than anything is one-on-one time with someone that they can bounce ideas off. And so, like a lot of people, I've got some coaching courses at my coaching, funny enough, coaching course site, my WG coaching school. But what I'm finding, looking at sales, is people are saying to me that, look, we just don't want to sit there and watch a series of videos of someone talking about this topic. What we really want is some quality time with someone who understands sport, is prepared to listen to our unique issues and discuss things that are relevant to me. I'm seeing it in the education coaches all the time. We used to spend hours and hours giving all this background work about how muscles work and what's in blood and all that stuff. Don't waste time doing that anymore. We help coaches to coach better by getting them to coach and by spending time with other coaches and by working with them while they're coaching, while they're actually doing what they do in very short bits. So like I said, I work with an NRL team and I'm supposed to be coaching the coaches, but the way we do it is I'm in the box or I'm in the change rooms or I'm on the field. I've done it this way for a long time with AFL and rugby and other groups. And it's 10 seconds to 30 seconds of relevant information when they're seeking it in the context of their coaching. If I was to do the greatest 1 hour video of all time, none of them are going to watch it. Our attention span is limited to whatever's on TikTok. So what I'm finding is I've had to get better at how can I influence the behaviors and attitude of coaches and athletes in very, very quick times. Well, the only way you can really do that is to be there with them when the problems that they're encountering arise or when they're looking for the specific information to help them get better in that environment. So it's really good fun. It's a bit hairy sometimes. You've got these 120 kilogram units running around you that could probably trample you into the ground, but it's an exciting way to do coach education. But, answer to your question, what I'm finding people want more and more is just time with me listening. Although an interesting one following on from what we've discussed this morning, of every 10 mentoring sessions that I do with coaches, it'd be fair to say that 6 or 7 out of 10 of those sessions are dealing with parents in sport or political issues around committees, political issues around facilities, equipment, dealing with bodies. Quite fascinating. Of all the things that they could talk about, that 7 out of 10 coaches, when I'm doing mentoring, it's usually quite often it's personal issues around relationships and things like that, which is fascinating because quite often there's a lot of coaching widows and widowers in the business where relationships have been strained because of the demands of coaching. But 7 out of 10 have got nothing really to do with technique or skill or working with athletes or team building, or it's to do with those peripheral, what we call coach killers, which are dealing with overzealous parents, dealing with the expectations of committees, and dealing with politics in and around their program, it fascinates me that in the mentoring programs, I either structure them based on what I think the needs of the coaches are or what they're telling me they are, or I just leave it open for them to raise issues and we talk like you and I have this morning. And it's fascinating to me that the vast majority say their biggest issues and their most challenging and most difficult issues from dealing with parents, dealing with committees, dealing with politics, and rescuing their own relationships. It tells you a lot about what the real day-to-day issues in coaching are.
Wayne, thank you so much. I've just found myself today in awe. And you're so knowledgeable. And
I'm just old, mate. I've been around for a long time. I I can tell you, what colour the HMS Endeavour was when Cook rolled into Botany Bay. He was asking me for swimming lessons as they arrived. I've been around for a long time. I think you just you accumulate knowledge when you survive. What did Woody Allen say once? He said the secret to success is just turning up.
Awesome, mate. Thank you so much for joining us, Wayne. And I'm looking forward to having more chats with you along the line, and as we get into deeper and deeper subjects and deeper topics. So thank you so much for joining the Where's My Sports At podcast, Wayne.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure.